Welcome to Sahara TV once again, and with us is the former Secretary General of the Organization of African Trade Union Unity. He's a human rights activist, a journalist, and an author, Comrade Lakemfa. It's a pleasure to have you on Sahara TV, sir.
Thank you very much.
It's barely 4 days to Nigeria's presidential elections, and these are considered to be the worst of times for the country. In one of your recent piece, you said we have been buffeted by rampant cases of terrorism, banditry, sectarian violence. Inflation is over 20%. We became the poverty capital of the world and one of the most corrupt, one of the most inept leadership in the world. But you quoted, we were quoted as saying that we are to blame, Nigerians are to be blamed for the debilitating currency crisis we find ourselves today, which has further impoverished us. Why would you say Nigerians are to be blamed?
No, well, it's simply that we went to the market or to the forest and we brought wood, infested wood, wood infested with maggots. And so we are to blame. The president or whoever is in power did not force himself on us, So we saw what he did as a military leader, and we cried. And then he came in, we saw what he did in the first 4 years, and gave another 4 years. So I'm not too sure that the president is maybe all who allowed him to come back. And so he had, for me, one thing I like President Buhari about is that he has not changed. Since, his military days. Since when he was a minister, he was a governor, and he was military, he has not changed. So there's nothing, it's not as if he came to deceive us, so he did not.
It was quite clear, I mean, from many of your pieces that I've read, sir, that you are often quoted as saying that this is a regime of impunity and that has a culture and style that remain parts of the Buhari administration. And just like you've reiterated again, that this man has not changed. Now we are saying an APC government that is intent of getting back into power. I mean, what's the message to Nigerians at this point in time? Can Nigeria afford another 4 years of APC governance?
Look, it's a very complex thing. It's a complex thing because I think, in my view, the personality of Buhari and that of Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, they are different. I'll look more, and when you look at their programs, I'm not too sure they are radically different in terms of, the cancellation of ideas they try to portray. And so it's down to looking at the individuals and what they represent. So it's not so much, in my view, as whether, it's APC or PDP. It's not really that. Because if you to look at that, it's very difficult to differentiate between the PDP, in my view, and the APC. In any case, their leaders and are, they've been to all sorts of organizations. Part of the leadership of PDP came from, including the candidates, came from APC in any case. So the issue is not, for me, about the party. Parties are vehicles for electoral victory. I mean, electoral contest in Nigeria. They are not vehicles for impacting the society or development. They are not. They are merely electoral platforms. So the electoral platform of the APC or that of the PDP, they are not fundamentally different. So it's down to looking at the individuals and what they've done in the past and what they can do for Nigeria. And I think that's the issue.
Now, still talking about the party, I mean, individual, you said that none of the current leading presidential candidates is suffering from the neo-military complex, which Buhari was said to have. What must we do to ensure, what must Nigerians do to ensure that this impunity, so to say, or this affliction does not arise a third time?
Well, part of the problem that we have as Nigerians is that we have not realized that we are sovereignty, that sovereignty belongs to us, and our power must flow from us. If we do realize that, then we can call anybody to order. But you cannot have, I mean, if you take a government like this, I recall, for instance, that far back December 2015, one of the religious preachers in Nigeria had been given bail. That's over 7 years, from 7 years ago, and he's still in detention. So we as Nigerians can simply say, look, we are the power, and we should be able to call anybody to order. But you just find impunity everywhere, and that is why we also find ourselves in the crisis that we face today. Nobody can call anybody to order. There is, there is lawlessness actually, and that is why the president will make a pronouncement and the governor will counter him on a matter as serious as the currency and the currency of the country. There is some level of decency to. We're having some problems about lawlessness.
In one of your recent pieces, you quoted and said that those who sold Nigerians the dummy that the former military dictator had reformed to be a Democrat are mainly those willing today that they want to rescue the country from a stifling grip. It may be too late. Unquote, sir. And I mean, I always have, love your play on words and your proverbs. You mentioned the proverb about the shape of if you want to shape the Iroko tree, you start doing so from the nursery stage, not when it becomes a mighty tree, which at that stage will have become wild. So is it too late in this instance for Bola Ahmed Tinubu, whom you allude to the fact that it's different from Buhari, to actually return this, change the fortunes of Nigeria at this point in time?
I think it's the options that we have. So if you have 2 or 3 options, you might have to just pick one. Or if you have 4 or 5 options, that's the dilemma we are faced with. In my own view, for instance, the Labour Party.
Good.
If you take the Labour Party that has made tremendous impact in this election, I'm not too sure how strong they are on ground in terms of the fact that I believe that elections will be free and fair and partially rigged. And because you see, you have a lot of ungoverned spaces in this country. Spaces, governed or run by bandits, by terrorists, by secessionists. Yet there are likely to be results coming from those places. For you to partake in that type of sharing of votes, you must be present in those places. You must have some presence. I'm not too sure the Labour Party has such strength. I'm not too sure. So that's part of the problem that I think we have. Now, talking about those who said Buhari was reformed, I think they made a fundamental error. And some of us tried to point this out from the beginning, far back 2014. It is not what somebody says he is, it is what he is. It is not what somebody announces that he is, but it's actually its actions. And I did not see any of that playing out in the case of the president. That's why I think the president has been consistent and predictable.
Now, let's also look at the judiciary, the Supreme Court, as a matter of fact. You were quoted as saying that the Supreme Court has become an highly compromised institution where truth is hard to find and justice is as scarce as a new currency. Really, that's quite serious. Some others have actually alluded to the fact that what we have now are judicial bandits in the Supreme Court. And one begins to wonder, are there any hope, if peradventure, that these elections becomes inconclusive?
I do not think there are judicial bandits in the Supreme Court. I think we are people who otherwise should be upright. That's my view. However, a lot of for me, some of their decisions are they are cause for concern. Some of their decisions that I have witnessed. I do not know how you can pick a man who came fourth in an election and appoint him governor of a state, and you want stability and development in that state. It's not possible. Now, I quoted, for instance, when the Supreme Court ruled on Amechi in 2007, I think, and they said, look, Amechi did not contest that election as a person, but the PDP did. So the issue is, who was the PDP candidate, because it's supposed to be party. And the Supreme Court said they are looking not at the technicality of the case, but at the justice of the case. Now that's very good. And that's what justice is about. Because when you go to court, you are looking for justice. You are not looking for who can speak the best grammar or quote the best quotation. And so that's the problem that you then have now with the Supreme Court going technical. Really technical and forgetting about justice. And so you find in the cases of Senator Akpabio and Lawal,
good,
they were presidential candidates when the primary held in their parties. And that was also when you had the senatorial primary. And after they failed or could not get the ticket, then they came back later. And then you then make them the candidates of the party. That's not the justice of it also. And so you have parts of those kind of problems. And so I believe we should fight for the Supreme Court because it is right to do so. It is our interest to do so. However, the Supreme Court must also fight for itself. And that is why some of us campaigned against the invasion of the homes of judges by the Buhari administration. And that's why some of us felt that Justice Ononge, who was the Chief Justice of the country, should not have been removed in any way, because that was like, trying to destroy the independence of the judiciary. Unfortunately, he was removed, and somebody who was who I think was pro-regime came in, and he could do nothing, and had to be forced down or disgraced down. And so you have that problem still on now. So the Supreme Court will also need, while we fight for the Supreme Court, it should also try to become the Supreme Court of the country, of the people, and not of politicians or technicalities.
But considering the fact that the Supreme Court is the Supreme Court justices sit in public and their decisions are subject to public scrutiny. Is it not possible for the courts to, for some of their judgments to be criticized, especially in the case of these examples you've cited of the senatorial tickets that were given to Ahmed Lawan and Akpabio? Is there a remedy?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but I read about Lord Dennis, who said when a court sits in public, it's also on trial. Yeah. And so the Supreme Court judges, when they sit in the hallowed chamber, they're also on trial. And so whatever they do, once they make their pronouncement as Supreme Court judges, as people who can be infallible, they've lost the right to control public reaction to it. Yeah. So the Supreme Court can make its ruling, but we also as citizens can also make our opinions known. We can say, look, this thing you've done is not correct. You have to do something about it, or do something next time. So we need a Supreme Court that people, our children or next generations can refer, to their cases. I recall, for instance, that when the Supreme Court took the controversial decision in 1979, talking about two-thirds, and they said it should not be cited. It didn't make much sense, And so I think what the Supreme Court makes is really that's all. We should go back and sit down and let people decide. Make their own comments. You cannot claim they cannot make comments, like the Supreme Court tried to do in its recent statement. It's not possible. I asked you, you say I should not criticize your judgment. You have made the judgment and you close the case. So what are you going to do? Are you going to sue me for what now? For slander or for libel? Because you cannot then constitute the Supreme Court, as far as I know, and say, go and bring that man who criticize us, send it to Kirikiri prison. You can't do that. So if you make a decision and I say I do not agree with you, what are you going to do? Nothing. Once you made your case, you finish it, and you have to move on as Supreme Court. But all these ones are coming back and coming to insult people and threatening people. It just does not make sense, at least in a democracy.
Away from the Supreme Court, Justices, let's look at INEC's preparedness. You are an election observer in Venezuela from one of your pieces which I read, and you compared Venezuela elections to Nigeria's current process. And looking at INEC's with the modern electoral system, the PVCs, the revolution of using card readers, and the newest contraption, in quote, of the BVAS, the bimodal voter accreditation system, which is supposed to read PVC and authenticate a voter's fingerprint. It is said that it will actually put an end to some of the issues and concerns we have with the process. The question I want to ask is, do you think INEC is ready to conduct a free, fair, and credible election, considering the fact that you mentioned earlier that there are so many ungoverned spaces in the country? And how do you think the issues of insecurity will mar these elections, will impact this process?
Well, the INEC says they are ready, and I do not have any way of doubting them. They say they are ready. Because I do not have any independent view of finding out whether they are ready or not. It's the process of elections that will determine whether they are ready or not. Yeah, but of course there are the ungoverned spaces, and I think results will come from them. There are also places. I mean, if you take a body saying that there should be no election, and that body, yes, we may not agree with it, but it has some leverage in some of those areas. It says there should be no election. So there's a problem there. But let me say generally that we started off in colonial times with elections. And I'm talking about 70, 80 years ago. So we are not new to elections. What has happened is that we have not really seriously improved. Elections in Nigeria is a quadrennial business, massive business. And I think we should also get a lot of foreign exchange from this, given the amount of foreigners that are coming, to come and spend their money here. It's massive business. And that is why when INEC says, we don't have new notes, the CBN is supposed to have said, no, we are going to give you. Because that one is more important than Nigerians should have money to spend to go to school or to feed. You get it?
Yes.
If I were involved in any way or far, I would give more priority to the Nigerian child going to school and getting food than to INEC. But INEC would be giving priority. And I think they said there have been a lot of improvement. There are the US reports after President Yar'Adua was sworn in. Like you said, we have permanent voters, we have card readers, which was a game changer. Also, we're told there is BVAS, which is a game changer. There are all sorts of contraptions. But the issue is that the world has gone beyond all this. Elections are very simple things. Like I said, in the case of Switzerland, for instance, in Switzerland, that look, I did not even know there were elections going on in the first place. The man went and came back. So there were elections going on. So that is a problem. And then also, you also have the case of Venezuela. That's also an election that was very simple. And all you needed to do was bring your ID card and vote. So all these things about permanent visas and so are things that are not really necessary for you to advance or move. Yeah.
Now, if I may ask, do you, in your own view, do you feel that this will Nigeria's cash chaos at this point in time, will it have any impact on these elections?
I think the impact it might be if you have the voters that are not within their own residential area.
Okay.
And will have to move. That may be possible. Otherwise, if INEC says they have enough money, I mean, they have the money now, I do not see what you really need money for elections or election day. I do not really see. Once INEC, the body that is, organizing the election, says they are ready and they have their own system. All you need to do as a Nigerian is simply go and vote. And if you are an electoral agent, to simply go and be part of the agent, the system. That's all.
Let me put you on the spot, and I crave your indulgence. What's your assessment of the chances of the main contenders as far as this, and your projections as far as this February 25th election is concerned? What are their chances?
I think the main contenders. I think they have advantages and disadvantages. The main contenders. I think so. Like I said, I think, for instance, Peter Obi has youth on his side. And I think some ideas that can propel people. Although I'm not too sure about the calculator of his ideas now. You get it? Or, you can make any declaration. It depends on what you actually bring to the table, what you actually implement. So you can talk about production, and then come in and then there's no production. It's possible. Just like Buhari was talking about restructuring. And it's coming over 7 years as no restructuring. So it's possible. And, Atiku also has his own advantages, I think. The same with Asiwaju, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But they also have, of course, as you know, they have internal party problems. I mean, which has to be managed really, because if you have the governors of a ruling party, suddenly revolting, that can be serious for your party. And the same thing with, Alhaji Atiku. I'm not too sure the issue about the 5 governors of Zealand. I think should have been handled differently to ensure that they have some electoral value or advantage.
Lakemfa, thank you so much for your time and for having this discussion with you. We really appreciate your time, sir.